evening, everyone. Well, welcome to Coppin State University. My name is Calvin Young. I serve as Chief of Staff to Mayor Scott, and we'd like to welcome you all here for our budget night. Thank you all for coming out to share your thoughts on the city budget. I'm not going to stay up here long at all. Without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to our fearless leader, the Mayor of Baltimore, Brandon Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chief. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for being here. I'll be very brief so that we can get into the crux of the night. I hope tonight's event provides a little more insight into our proposed budget, our process, and really the people that make it happen. Laura and the team and Calvin will go into instructions once I finish kicking it off tonight. But we're doing things a little differently so that everyone here has an opportunity to engage with a whole bunch of members of our administration. I'm just going to ask that all of the cabinet members rise and wave your hands so that everyone can see you. All our agency folks, wave your hands. If you want to get the police commissioner, pull him aside now. He has to go play me at another event, so he'll be leaving us shortly. But first, I want to start by addressing really the elephant in the room. We put forth a fiscally balanced budget that met the needs of our city in light of all of the things that we know are happening in the world. And I'll dive into those details shortly. But given the uncertainty that we're facing, especially at the federal level, we have to understand that what we have done so far might not matter and we might have to change, right? I know you heard from some of our state leaders today what is happening at the federal level and the proposed budget and the impacts that it will have on all of us. We have to understand that that is real. This is not myself, the Senate president, the speaker, the governor, anybody you hear trying to make a boogeyman. These things are real and have real impacts to our city, not just folks who were federal workers, but to the programs and things that operate across the city of Baltimore. We know what they've been going and waving around a hacksaw since they got into office, and they've already made what we think are irresponsible, messy cuts to programs that feed the elderly, fund school, support violence reduction across the city, and they are just beginning. We saw and knew that some of this were coming. So we, for example, took steps late last year to safeguard some of our funding in critical programs like our group violence reduction strategy by moving that from being federally funded to being funded at the local level in the general fund. But that isn't a fix that we can apply to every single dollar that we are used to getting from the feds. Here's what I do know. If we experience the kind of massive cuts that Trump is threatening to make, we will have even more difficult conversations to have. And it is my job as the mayor and leader of the city to tell you that honestly. If the cuts that they are proposing and some of the things that they have said that they want to do come to fruition, it will mean that we're going to have very hard and real conversation. No one wants to deal with the reality of what would happen if the administration continues to indiscriminately slash funding left and right. But it is a reality that we're staring down the barrel of each and every day. But we will do everything in our power to handle that possibility and, of course, fight in every way that we can, as we will continue to do. But I need everyone here and for you to take back to your fellow community members and family members to really understand those impacts that are coming from this administration's reckless behavior. With that, let's talk about the things we can control and what we did here at the local level. We started this process with a $85 million budget gap. And Baltimore in history, and Ms. Kim, I know you know this because you reminded me of it consistently, had a history of balancing its budget on the backs of communities that have faced disinvestment, and in particular on the backs of young people. When I was a young staffer in City Hall, I remember very vividly being a city council staffer, the council and the administration, the mayor at the time, having fights around closing rec centers and PAL centers. Fate would have it that some of them I got to reopen as mayor in my term as mayor. We're committed to doing things differently. Our proposed budget fills the gap without cuts to city services or layoffs or furloughs to our employees, or without any increases to property or income taxes. We first started by identifying things that we can do better. And for every dollar in revenue that we're proposed, that Laura will go into, we identified $2 in savings and cuts within a city government. And let me just say, we are very well aware of the strengths that folks are feeling right now. The savings identified by our agencies and the new proposed revenue you'll hear about shortly allow us to create new opportunities for us to invest in our young people and older adults, improve how we deliver service, and build on the historic progress that we've made in building public safety across our city. Our budget delivers $624 million for services that directly support young Baltimoreans. It builds on the progress that we made with investments to GVRS to take that model citywide, new cost-saving measures and initiatives to get more officers back out in our communities, and improvements in parking and traffic safety efforts. As we continue to attract into the city private sector investment, we're making sure that Baltimore's economic growth benefits all of us in all neighborhoods. And we're also allocating funding to maintain clean and healthier neighborhoods. Our capital budget includes the largest investment in long-term planning in 20 years. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. This will grow investments in affordable housing, school construction, and city parks and recreation. And through our opioid restitution fund, we'll expand crisis response efforts, including for EMS, community-based organizations, and homeless shelters, and we'll move the first tranche of money to community organizations totaling more than $17 million. I'm about to hand the microphone over to Laura, our incredible budget director, to get a little bit more in the weeds on numbers. But let me just round out my opening by saying that this is a process that we approach with all of you in mind. And from the beginning of my administration, we were always about doing things the right way. The right way isn't always the popular way. Most of the time, it's not the popular way. I want a Baltimore to be positioned to take on all the challenges ahead in the best way that we can, especially in this moment. So what you see reflected here in this budget is what we believe we should do to move this city forward. And we look forward to our breakout sessions where we can start engaging in a bit more robust discussion. But before I pass to Laura, I will say this. We've heard a lot about some of the fee increases that we're proposing. And I will just say this. We know that people are feeling the pinch. That's why we're being very focused on that. That's why if folks don't want to pay a higher fine for illegally dumped, they can not illegally dump in Baltimore. If they don't want to pay a higher fine for running a red light or speeding through a school zone, they can not speed or run a red light. We're going to continue to look at things that we think make sense, including changing our landfill fee, something that has folks bringing in trash to our quarantine road landfill in Baltimore, a fee that had not been changed since 1993 when I was 9 years old. So we're going to continue to look at things in a way that moves Baltimore forward, and we look forward to tonight. And with that, I will turn it over to our fabulous budget director, Laura Lawson. Laura?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evenings to be with us tonight and to share your feedback and talk with us a little bit about our spending plan for fiscal 26. As you were coming in to the event, we were handing out the community guides that we put together to summarize all of the big, lengthy documents that we put out every year to summarize the recommendations from the budget. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to walk through and give a little bit more context for some of the numbers that the mayor was talking about. And then I'm going to try to get us into our breakouts as quickly as possible so that we can start to have smaller group conversations and to hear more of your feedback. So if you open the guide to the first page, you can see sort of the big picture numbers of the proposed fiscal 26 budget. And so when we look at the total plan together, it's about $4.69 billion. And so what that means is about 78% or 3.68 billion is going to the city's operating budget. And that is what funds the day-to-day of the services and the programs that we provide for city residents. It includes staff that support everything from repaving our roads to maintaining our water infrastructure to staffing our pools. The operating budget is growing by about 5.8% when we look at the fiscal 26 preliminary budget compared to last year's budget. The other portion of the budget, about 21% of the budget, or $1 billion, represents our capital plan. And that is the stuff that we build. That is the infrastructure that we use in order to provide services to residents. So that includes everything from the roads that we drive on to the sidewalks that we walk on to the infrastructure that delivers water to all of our homes. When we look at the capital budget year over year, it's actually growing by a very significant number. It's up by almost 37%. Capital budgets are a little different than operating budgets. Operating budgets grow by sort of a steady amount every year based off of things getting a little bit more expensive year over year. The capital budget can go up and down really fast depending upon the size of major capital projects that we have in the queue. So when we look at that growth on the capital budget side for next year, a lot of that is coming from investment in our water and wastewater infrastructure that ends up getting paid back through the rates that we pay for water and wastewater fees. It also reflects a number of other large projects that are big one-time appropriations. On the bottom of this page, you can see what's happening with the revenue that supports the city's budget. And now we're going to zoom a little bit more intentionally into the operating budget. So out of that $3.6 billion, about 60% of that makes up the city's general fund. About 67% makes up the city's general fund. The general fund is the fund that our policymakers have the most discretion over in terms of how they allocate it. It's the fund where things like your property tax go. It's the fund where things like your income tax go. So when we look at those funding sources year over year, we can see that property tax revenue is projected to bring in about $1.2 billion next year. That's almost half of the city's general fund. The next largest source of revenue is income tax revenue. So that's the share of your annual income tax payment that comes back to the city. That's projected to bring in about $599.6 million next year. And the third largest source of revenue is something we call highway user revenue. And that's actually something that is a revenue stream that's passed on to us from the state of Maryland. And so the state collects a number of transportation-related revenues. Think fuel tax, think about the taxes or the fees that you pay when you go to register your vehicle. A portion of that revenue then gets allocated back to us in the city. Next year, we're going to get about 12.2% of what is collected statewide. So those three sources together, they make up 75% of all the revenue that funds the city's general fund. And the rest of the sources come from a number of smaller sources, including things like the fines and fees that the mayor mentioned. If you flip the page, you can see a little bit more detail about how we balance this year's budget. When we built our forecast, expenditures were projected to grow faster than revenue. And so what that meant is that the city had to balance an $85 million shortfall. We did that through a series of initiatives that are focused on generating new revenue, but also looking to optimize city costs. And as the mayor said, for every dollar of new revenue that's part of this package, there are $2 of city savings. And I would say when we look at both the savings and the new revenue items, the focus was on how do we challenge outdated assumptions in our budget that are no longer aligned with how we're operating or where we want to go. And so that's where you're seeing us look at a number of very outdated fines and fees that haven't been updated for many years to look for ways that we can update those to be a more modern structure that's aligned with the cost of providing those services. On the expenditure side, we were able to identify a number of legacy costs that we could reduce to bring in line with actual spending. And we were also able to identify areas where we could do things better for less money. Next up is, as the mayor talked about, the fiscal 26 budget includes funding from the opioid restitution fund. So folks who've been following along know that the city has been part of a multi-year litigation effort against the pharmaceutical industry and manufacturers and distributors in terms of how their actions were impacting the opioid epidemic in our community. The city has received a number of settlements as well as one at trial in terms of the damages from those individuals. And so we have received some of that funding. We will continue to receive portions of that funding over multiple years. And so the mayor's recommended budget proposes to budget about $36 million from that fund next year, with the goal of ensuring that those dollars are able to last for 15 years in terms of making investments in our community. On the next page, you see each of the pillars that are reflected in the city's budget. And so what we try to do is we take city agencies and we break them down into the services that they provide. And what we do is we look at those services in the context of the overall goals and outcomes that we're trying to drive for residents so that we can make funding decisions based off of how we achieve those outcomes and less about how dollars are changing year over year in city agency budgets. I'm not going to walk through each of those pillars because as we move into our different breakouts, we're going to go into those in more detail. And you'll get additional handouts that will allow you to learn a little bit more about some of those highlights. I just want to wrap us up by on the final page by just talking a little bit about process and where we are in our cycle. So I was just walking through the preliminary budget recommendations, and this is based off of the spending plan that the mayor presented to the Board of Estimates at the beginning of April. Actually, tomorrow morning, the mayor is going to present the Board of Estimates recommendations before the board, and there will be some minor modifications compared to what we talked about here today. And so at tomorrow's meeting, the board will adopt their recommended budget, and based off of that, they will hand the budget over to the city council. And at Monday's city council meeting, the city council will formally introduce the budget for next year. From there, it will get referred out to committee within the city council, and that allows them to have hearings with city agencies where they can talk more in depth about the recommendations in the budget. Next Thursday, May 15th, the City Council will hold a taxpayer night where residents can come in and can provide additional feedback and testimony about things that they're seeing in the budget. And then they'll hold hearings on the budget starting May 28th and going through June 4th. After that, they have the month of June to deliberate on the budget, and they have to be done with the budget and adopt it and finalize it by June the 26th. And that allows us to take those recommendations and to finalize our tax rates, generate our tax bills, and begin work on implementing all the recommendations in the city's budget that would go into effect on July the 1st. All of the information that we're walking through, all the resources that we put out live on the city's website on the budget page. Our acronym is BBMR, so Bureau of the Budget and Management Research. So bbmr.baltimorecity.gov is where you can find all of these materials. So with that, enough of us talking. It's now time to hear from you all. And so I also just want to note that we've been joined by our city administrator, Faith Leach, who's also going to be participating and helping out with our breakout session. So I'll turn it over to City Administrator Leach to say a few words.
All right, good evening, everyone. Okay, so now we get to work. So what we've devised for you this evening is a few breakout sessions where we're going to break out by pillar and talk about where our investments are, but also where your priorities are and some of your major concerns. And to do that, we have the Mayor's Cabinet with us. If you are a member of the Mayor's Cabinet, please raise your hand. Okay, so these are the folks that are going to help guide you through the discussion that we're about to have in our pillar breakout sessions. So our pillars are as follows, and they're in different parts of the room. So we have clean and healthy communities on my left. And within Clean and Healthy Communities, we have the Department of Public Works. So if you have public works concerns, or if that's a priority for you, then that's going to be over to my left. We have the Department of Parks and Recreation, also the Baltimore City Health Department. So if you have questions, concerns, or if you want to talk about issues related to the health department, that's all in Clean and Healthy Communities to my left. The capital budget is also straight ahead, also semi to my left. And that's where you get to talk about our physical infrastructure. So everything from road resurfacing, for example, to our new recreation centers that are budgeted in our capital budget. City buildings are also budgeted through our capital budget process. And so we have the capital budget straight ahead and to my left. And then straight ahead to my right, we have responsible stewardship. So think about all of the internal city government services, our IT department. Human resources is also located within responsible stewardship of city resources. And so you can go to my right if you're interested in responsible stewardship of city resources. And public safety. We know public safety is absolutely a priority for our community. And so to my right, we have building public safety. And in building public safety, that is where you can address concerns and have conversations about the Baltimore City Fire Department, the Baltimore City Police Department. The Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement is also in our building public safety. And then all the way to my right is prioritizing youth. And so in prioritizing youth is where you're going to see the Enoch Pratt Free Library, Baltimore City Public Schools, which you heard about our funding for Baltimore City Public Schools, the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, where we have our Community Action Partnership Centers. All of that is going to be located in prioritizing our youth. Everybody got it? Oh, we got one more. Equitable neighborhood development. How could I forget equitable neighborhood development? This is housing. So this is where you're going to be able to have conversations about the mayor's vacant strategy and some of the investments that we are doing over with DHCD. Also, our economic development work sits in our equitable neighborhood development. Our Office of Small Business Development and Advocacy is in equitable neighborhood development. So those are all of our breakouts. Now, what we're going to ask you to do when I pause is that you get to go to each of the breakout, you get to go to a selected breakout. You'll be joined by members of the mayor's cabinet where we're going to facilitate a discussion, hear your concerns, talk about the budget investments in that pillar. And then there'll be an opportunity to rotate. I think we're going to rotate 3 times around the room so that you can have conversations at each at 3 of the different pillars throughout this evening's session. Everybody good on directions? Okay. Any questions? Everybody's good. Okay, so on 3, we're all gonna go to one of our selected breakout. I didn't get to 3. All right, pause, freeze. Okay. Okay, on 3, and we see across the room where our pillars are. On 3, everybody go to your first breakout. And I haven't gotten to 3 yet. When you hear my voice, when I come back to the mic, that's when I'm going to ask for you to freeze where you are. All right. I'm going to ask for you to freeze where you are. And then we're going to switch to a pillar. Okay. On 3, 1, 2, 2.5. Got y'all. All right. 3.